Hello YouTube, this is Sam Gerrans from caller-night.com. Today is Sunday the 5th of January 2020, and today I'm going to read an email. I think it also ended up as a comment on one of my videos. About a month ago, I think, I made a video about how women are being weaponized, frankly, and used to destroy civilization. As a Westerner, somebody who grew up in the West and somebody who lives in Russia mainly today, I see what I see. But I asked people to submit, accounts from other places where this is happening, and I've received various messages from kinds of places you wouldn't think where this is going on. But I'm going to read this message because it will show you that this is a worldwide agenda. It's nothing to do with women, obviously. These decisions are made at the top of the top of the food chain, and any kind of, I would assert, any illusion that we have a choice when we go and vote and so on, it's just that it is an illusion. But what actually is a single agenda, which at the moment is really kind of focusing on destroying the family by means of weaponizing women and creating these sort of sexual deviant mutants that everyone has to be nice about. And whereas what they really need is some help, we're given to believe that this is some sort of Pepsi Coke lifestyle choice, and now they're snipping bits off small children and so on. You couldn't make it up. But anyway, I'm going to concentrate on the women at this point. And again, if you're a woman, I'm not inveighing against you. I'm just seeing that what's happening is that a weaponizing of women against themselves, against their families, against their actual natures, against their actual interests, and against those who were designed by God to protect them, namely men. And what's happening is that women always will go with whoever feeds and protects. Whoever feeds and protects, that's the husband. That's the husband. And historically, that was, the husband. But what's happened to women now is that they've been given the idea that they're free, that they're sort of emancipated. They don't need the man anymore. That's not true. What's happened is that men's earning capability has been collectivized, it's been stolen from through taxes, and then it's redirected as redistribution of men's wealth, having created this society, done all the roads, created all the buildings, cleared all the swamps, done all that. Now women are being encouraged to feel that their mission is to move in and usurp men. What actually is happening is that the woman is destroying her house with her own hands. But marketers know and correctly that they can sell to women what they'd never be able to sell to men, because women are shoppers, they're avaricious, and they're collectors by nature, and that's a good part of their nature, because it means they can be getting on with other things while the man's out, sort of killing the mammoth. The woman can be getting on with other things, the womanly things, you see. But we've been very well studied, and they're now using these normal, decent, good female traits against the woman, and they're destroying things. Now, we know this. If you live in the West, you can already see this. These fat, horrible, disgusting, mutant women walking around the place, and they're fat, horrible, and disgusting because they can be, because they have gone to seed, because they don't need a man. So there's no reason for them to make an effort, because they're actually whores of the state. That's what they actually are. And I'm not being horrible. it's just a fact. So that's just how it is. But we know it's going on in the UK. We know it's going on in America. All of the former Commonwealth countries being systematically destroyed. And what's more interesting to me is how this is exactly the same agenda as being rolled out in other countries. It's happening in Africa, where they will give, the banks will give microloans only to women. This completely destroys the natural order, the natural dynamic between the man and the woman. It makes her the boss. It usurps him. I live in a formerly Soviet country, just on the Russia. People think Soviet Union's all over and everything. I don't think so. If you look around, the symbology is still there. Lenin statues everywhere. Not very far from where I live, there's It's actually a ziggurat if you look at it objectively, and it says, workers of the world unite. It's still all there. All the symbology is there. If you look on top of the Kremlin, the 5-pointed star is still there. If you look on the military insignia, it's still Soviet. It's fundamentally Soviet. Nothing really has changed. It's just that what we're having now is that the West is being made Soviet too. You don't call it Soviet, but it is Sovietism. It's a cultural Marxist destruction, because this is one of the tenets of Marxism: is destroy the family. It's a bourgeois institution as is seen, and it has to be destroyed, because what it's all about fundamentally is the religion of the state, and the women are being used as the new foot soldiers of this revolution, and we're living through a revolution. Anyway, all that's just by way of preamble. So I'm not going to say who this was, but I'm going to read. This chap is from Pakistan, and I saw, I saw in one of your videos you wanted to hear what's going on in the rest of Muslim countries. So here's what I wanted to share. It's not just Muslim countries. I don't consider Pakistan a Muslim country. I suppose it's a sort of Islamicist country in some sort of ways, but okay, whatever it is, doesn't matter. I'm interested in any country, but what's interesting is how this is uniformly being rolled out. So in Pakistan in the early 2000s, a dictator supported by the West passed many laws to liberalize, secularize and westernize our society. I'll stop there. I.e. to bring in exactly the same agenda that's been rolled out in the West. To continue, it started with allowing women to file for divorce, which will be granted right away in the family court. Now, this is what we had in the West. It's just, what I'm trying to say is, I'm not complaining about any of this. It's just I'm sort of I'm outlining the topology of the war. In the West, they brought in what's called no-fault divorce. You see, marriage used to be a contract. And the man's held to the contract. The man's held to it. There's no way out for him. His life will be destroyed. Okay, he will be destroyed on the basis of, on the basis of a woman's change in feelings. Think of another contract. Let's say, for example, you contract with a building company to build you a block of flats. And you draw up the contract. I will do this. You will do this. I will do this. You will do this. It's all signed, sealed, and witnessed. And they get halfway through building the foundations. They take your money, and then they say, we don't feel like doing this anymore. But we still want you to pay us moving forward. And we're going to take your family. We're going to take your children away from you. This is pretty much what women do to men routinely now. Okay, this is the situation. The law is unique in a sense that it doesn't consider the strict conditions of the Islamic law, in inverted commas, on women seeking divorce. It, quote unquote, empowers the women to get divorce on a simple reason that she doesn't like her husband's face or doesn't feel compatible with him. In Russia, we have, they did this as well with the divorce laws in Russia under the Soviet system, and the standard reason for getting divorced is "не сошлись характерами." It means we didn't get on. Our characters were not aligned. There you are. That's it. That's the reason. Gone. However, he will still have to pay X amount out of his salary every month, and all of that. So that's it. That's it. That's this contract just blown out of the water on the basis of a change of feelings. And women have feelings. They have lots of feelings, and those feelings can be good. But what I'm trying to say is that these feelings are being leveraged by very clever men at the top of this. It's men making these decisions. It's not women. They're using women in the same way as the first lot of communists used the proletariat. But as I've said before, what they realized about the proletariat is the proletariat are basically don't care about politics. They don't care about, uniting with other workers. What the proletariat want is a big bowl of beans and sausages and, a television and a car and a holiday. And to That's, basically stuff their faces until they die. That's it. That's all they want. They don't want anything more than that. And the problem was that they they thought that they could induce the proletariat to want something beyond that. Well, you can't. There's nothing you can do. It's wonderful, if you're in the mood for it, a wonderful story by Bulgakov called Собачье сердце, in Russian, the heart of the dog. You can't change it. There's nothing you do. But so what they did was they came back with a new plan. And the new plan is to leverage what really does work. And what really does work is feelings, people's egotism and self-interest in a very, very limited understanding of that word. So she doesn't feel compatible anymore. Now she can divorce him. It doesn't mean she just gets up and goes away now. It means she takes his house, his money, and his future with her. I mentioned in passing one of my other videos about what's going on in Spain. It's not just Spain. It's all over the world now. Women are destroying men's lives. Okay. So divorce rate skyrocketed, after this law, surprisingly. On top of that, the courts will give over custody of the children to the woman, as well as oblige the ex-husband to provide money to the woman for her maintenance, etc. This is called divorce rape. Okay, that's what the women routinely doing to men now. It's because women are all bad and evil? No, of course not. It's because they're just weak-minded idiots who will buy whatever marketers sell to them. If they sell them, kitchen appliances, they'll buy kitchen appliances. If you sell to them, no-fault divorces and all the rest of it, they'll buy those things too. This is known, and we'll get into how they do it. And the point of this is how this has been done in all the other countries too, because you'll recognise a lot of this. Doesn't matter where you live. Other than that, all the money and so-called development, quote-unquote, funding is going to women empowerment projects. And this word empowerment is a political term. And my whole point has been that this Me Too movement is a political movement. The transgender, so-called transgender, there's no such thing as transgender, but the so-called transgender agenda is a political movement. It's all political. The homosexual, sodomite agenda, it's a political thing. The whole thing is political. It's dressed up. What it's doing is it's accessing the lowest common denominators, or in fact not even common denominators, the freak denominators, if you want to call it that, claiming that this is somehow normal and sort of generalizing it and enforcing it and saying anybody who doesn't agree with these deviancies is a bigot and evil and terrible. But what this is doing, what the agenda this is after, is destroying everything, because it's got a plan. You see, it's working towards a plan. And that plan, I'm saying, is actually its DNA is in communism, in original communism, and this is, it goes back to even the French so-called French Revolution and so on. So all this funding is going to women, quote unquote, empowerment projects whose sole focus is to get the woman out of the house and make her pursue a career instead of nurturing the family. And they know once they can do that to you, you're finished. And what this is all about is about atomizing society. So there is no family. There's no defense between you and the state. Nothing. There's just you and the state. And no husband to protect you, no family to protect you, no family culture to protect you, because the children are now being educated by the television and pushes of a paedophile agenda if you live in the West, and that's what you'll get in schools now. Quote, to continue, it's being inculcated into their psyche that somehow being a career woman is better than her role as a housewife, mother and wife. Now, it doesn't matter where you live, you recognize that, right? I mean, I don't care which country you live in. Maybe there are a few kind of holdouts, I don't know, maybe places like Nigeria, one or two other places. But across the world, this is the same agenda. And my point isn't that women are bad. My point isn't even that this communist agenda particularly is bad, although I think it is. I'm not complaining about it. I'm just calling your attention to the fact that whatever choice you think you've got is illusory. It doesn't matter who you vote for. It doesn't matter how the illusion of choice is created in your particular part of the plantation. The agenda is one. And that's all I'm really calling your attention to. I'm not complaining. I'm dealing with reality as it is. And I'm just saying this is how it actually is. This indoctrination is happening through foreign-funded NGOs and media, especially the soap operas. Now, isn't that fascinating? All of this stuff, I grew up in the 1970s. They were pushing this even then. There was a comedy show called The Two Ronnies. The Two Ronnies. I'm talking 1970s. And there was a part of every one of these Two Ronnies shows where they had to dress up as women. They had to pretend to be women. And what they were doing was kind of leveraging and upending the male-female stereotype in order to have a dig at men and excuse me in this world that the two Ronnies lived in. Women dominated everything. This is the 1970s, and I saw Ronnie Barker, the bigger of the two, being interviewed. He hated that. He had to do it. He was contractually obliged to do it. He hated it. Now this just goes to show, this is the BBC back in the early 70s, that we're living through an agenda. Now, that's not a soap opera, but the soap operas do exactly the same thing. Men just zone out when a soap opera comes in. They've got soap operas for men. It's called football and sports. But women's soap operas, men just zone out. They just think it's harmless. No, it's not harmless. It's destroying you. It's aimed at... You can't compete, you see, with a woman's imagination. You can't compete with that. And whoever's controlling that imagination is controlling her. And whoever's controlling her is controlling you. Hitler said it best about propaganda. He said all propaganda is directed at the woman, because where the woman goes, the child will follow. And where the child goes, the man will follow. That's how they're doing it, see? And they're using soap operas, these things which just seem like, obviously it's just chewing gum for the brain, what passes for a brain. So, but this is what I'm trying to say is it's not innocuous. It's not just entertainment. None of this entertainment is just entertainment. I worked in media. I've seen how it's done. There's what's called the moral of the story. All education, all entertainment, and certainly all news is weaponized. It has a payload, and when you analyze it, you have to begin to understand how that payload works. It's like the Matrix. You suddenly, you start seeing beyond the ones and the zeros, and you can see what's really going on. Well, this is how it goes on, and this is what they're using. So they're using soap operas. To continue, I have yet to see a woman in Pakistan who doesn't watch these TV drama series which glorify adultery, fornication, divorce, and rebellion against traditional gender norms. And if you live in the West, we have all of that stuff, and it is predominantly women who watch this crap. And it's seeping down into the space between their ears, and it's going to re-emerge. It's going to emerge in your life in the form of, exactly what they've been watching. Adultery, fornication, divorce, and rebellion against traditional gender norms. Now, if everyone got together and said, you know what, women don't want to do anything. Women want to renege fundamentally on their obligations, on their part of the deal. Because this is what's happening. Very recently, I saw an article about women, and they were called women. They were all over the age of majority, who and they had been awarded millions of dollars in damages because they had been tricked into being online pornography stars. So they turned up. They were told to take all their clothes off and have sex with complete strangers for money, and then after that they claimed that they didn't understand that somehow that they were wronged. If a man had done that, just think how ridiculous that would sound. A man turns up, has sex with women he doesn't know, takes money, goes home, and then suddenly surprised because it's a porno shoot. Yeah, well, did you not work it out before then? Now, if you'd been a child, that's completely different. But you're supposed to be an adult. But women are not held to any objective standards of accountability that the men are held to, but they want equality. I don't really care which way it is. You can have it one way, you can have it the other way. Either men, as the Quran says, are the providers, the protectors, and responsible for women, or women are, the providers and protectors and responsible for themselves. I don't really care personally which way it is, but be consistent. But this system doesn't want it that way. It wants both. It wants men to, stay on the Titanic as it goes down while the women and the children go first. It wants men to, there are no feminists in a house fire. They don't exist, okay? Men always have to, clear up the mess. Men have to do all of this stuff. But we have to pretend now that women are somehow on a par. If they are, that's fine with me. I don't exactly have a problem with it. But there are consequences to that, actual consequences, because that's what responsibility means. It means dealing with those consequences. But women won't do that. What they want to do is they want to have their cake and they want to eat it. What they want is they want to eat chocolate and not get fat. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's not how it works. It doesn't work that way. I could say I wish it did, but it doesn't, see? And the man's job is to kind of keep the woman on track with that, historically. Okay, so let's carry on. On a government level, all the funding comes from the West through USAID, or USAID, we had this in Russia as well, the World Bank, the United Nations, DFID, etc., and has strings attached to this money. Conditions that require policies and laws to push society towards more and more degeneracy. And it's exactly the same anywhere. It doesn't matter which country you go to. We lived in Georgia, the country of Georgia, not the state of Georgia, for a year, Tbilisi. This is a very conservative country, very conservative. It may not mean an awful lot to you, but this is in the Caucasus, which if you've lived in the former Soviet Union, people from the Caucasus are pretty... how can we put it? Fiery-blooded, put it that way, and very family-orientated, and very friendly, actually, often, but somewhat Italian, if you get my drift, in sense of very traditional values and all of that. Georgia's been destroyed by exactly this sort of thing. They're pushing through exactly these agendas in Georgia. And the women are being weaponized. We had some Georgian friends there, and you could see what was going on. The marriage is under an awful lot of stress because of how the society was favouring women over men, usurping men, taking away men's traditional roles, and leaving them feeling as though they didn't really have an awful lot of purpose. You see, I'm not complaining about any of this. None of it. It's not my interest. Because my actual focus, what I'm going to get to, I hope, in another video, is my thesis is about a few good men. That's it. The actual answer to this is, in my opinion, is the Quranic hero. That's the answer. Okay, it's not about mass movements, but if you look in the Quran, I mean, there are righteous women. They certainly exist. Fir'aun's wife was righteous. Maryam was, extolled as an example of a righteous woman. So that exists. There's no question about that. However, the Quranic narrative is a heroic narrative, and I'm going to get into a later video about how the hero, male hero, has been sort of sucked out of society, and we've been turned into corporate man, the bureaucratic man, the organizational man. And I'm not here to change any of that. I don't care about what other people do. I do care about what I do. And it's this unifying purpose where you listen to the inner voice, you obey God over mammon, that is really salat. It's fundamentally what it means. It means to be inner directed, not directed by everyone else's opinions. So this is really kind of like in a way, sort of a step up into that later video, which I'd like to do in the next day or two, God willing. So anyway, to continue, laws related to sexual harassment are so anti-man to the point that every man is guilty until proven innocent. Now, isn't that the truth? They're doing this everywhere. In France, in the UK, women have come out in France saying this is ridiculous. Men are not allowed to compliment a woman on how she looks. And again, this is communistic. This is communistic. This is the same agenda, and it's going everywhere. Now, am I suggesting that women should be subject to, humiliation and so on? No, I'm not suggesting that. But what I am saying is that it's a natural and normal part of a woman's psyche to be desirable, to be attractive, and to be complimented sincerely for her, attributes. And if that's a crime, Well, it is a crime, and what I'm trying to say is it's one in Pakistan, right? It's not just France. It's not just, socialistic, mad France, poor France. On a slight different subject, I heard about 5 or 6 years ago, I think it was, that a soldier, a French soldier, he went into, I think it was Notre Dame, in full dress uniform, and blew his brains out. And quite frankly, I completely understood. I'm not in any way condoning or promoting suicide, but for a man who had spent his life serving, what was a great nation, to see the cesspit it's been turned into, that was a political act. And whilst I'm not in any way condoning it, I completely understood it. There have been dozens of cases where vengeful women went #MeToo on men and literally destroyed their reputation and life. And ain't that the truth? Because, women lie a lot. And if anybody knows that's the truth, it's women. However, now we've got this thing, believe the woman. The woman's believed no matter what. Spain, 400 cases a day of men having their lives taken away from them. The vast majority of these cases are found out later to be made up. It doesn't matter. The woman has destroyed your life. A woman has a hormonal change. Your life's gone, right? Where men built society, men created civilization, men did all that work, right? Women didn't do that work. Women supported it, women benefited from it, but didn't do it. And now men are being blamed for everything. And my point is that this is a political action, and it's using the weak, the silly, and the susceptible to do that. And that's why they're selling to people who will buy this nonsense. And decent, strong-minded, conservative women see through this like a sheet of glass, which is for what it is. But what I'm saying is that this is an agenda worldwide, and it doesn't matter where you live. If you can understand the language I'm talking now, and even if you can't, if you could, you'd know that you'd recognize what I'm talking about in Pakistan, in what's happening in your country. And what I'm saying is there's just one agenda, and it doesn't matter who you vote for. Doesn't matter. One man, a professor in Lahore, even committed suicide when his whole life got destroyed as a result of the false harassment allegation by a female student. And these female students are being indoctrinated into the biggest load of nonsense you've ever seen. I got out of university just at the right time, and the main decision that I came away from university is I'm never going back to one of these places again. And it was nothing then. I graduated in 1994 compared to what it is now. And the women were nasty. You could feel the vicious, not all, and perhaps not so much actually on the course that I was on. But when I met other girls women from other courses, especially which had like a social or political content to them, you could see what they were being very, very badly conditioned, and it's a lot worse now. So. Other than this, out of the 342 seats in Pakistan's parliament, 60 are reserved for women, which means that these are seats which are just handed over to women who become members of the parliament and legislate laws without even being elected. So there's so much for your, democracy nonsense. These female legislators are then used to further push for laws in the devil's direction. On the job side, 10% of the government jobs are reserved for women, which means they get those jobs without competing with men, and men are left jobless even if they are more deserving of the job. So this is, I can't remember what they call it anymore, this sort of prioritizing people who don't deserve it. And once you go down that route, you're not living in a meritocracy of any kind now. You're living in it's a form of despotism, isn't it? So I'm not complaining. That's not the point of this channel. I'm not really interested in that. But I just thought it was fascinating that this is the situation. It's happening worldwide. It doesn't matter where you live. It's got one agenda, and it's going to follow that agenda no matter who you vote for. And the payload delivery system is to do with what do they call them? Soap operas, using entertainment. Obviously magazines, all of that stuff, music. It's a weaponization of culture. I would argue that culture's always been used to, advance the agendas of an elite. But the idea now that somehow this culture is free, you're operating in a free market, is just ridiculous. If you try, if you try arguing against this, And in fact, in a future video, when I get into the concept of maleness and the concept of the hero, I'm going to discuss a chap called Colin Wilson. You see what happened, what they did to him. I mean, they completely ostracized him after initial huge successes because he didn't comport with or comply with the dominant socialistic, kind of pessimism. You're just a machine that can be molded and manipulated by the rulers to make you into an organizational man where you don't really have any opinions, where you'll bend over for just about everything. And having worked in the corporate world, I saw this, that whatever came down the pike, didn't matter what it was. And you see this in the UK. I've seen people I know, family members, etc. They'll roll over for everything because they're a member of the organization, and so heroism doesn't matter. And homosexuality, we're all right with that. Okay, all right, okay, transsexualism, we've all got to live and let live, Okay, now, women are telling us what to do, even though they're not very well qualified and being promoted above it. So, okay, because they'll bend over for everything. What's next? Bestiality, pedophilia, they'll bend over for that too. Why? Because they're not inner directed. They don't have, they're not serving God, they're serving mammon. And my whole point is not even to complain about what's going on in Pakistan, not to complain particularly about what's going on in the UK or anywhere else. I don't particularly care about any of that. My point is that a few good men, this is the Quranic position, is that being inner directed by the principles of God, this is the model. It's never about a mass movement. It's never about that. Read it with your eyes open, your brain engaged, and you'll see that that's the case. So I'm not here, trying to sort of, impose Quranic positions upon, society. I don't care about any of that. I care about is this delivery payload that the Quran has based on an internally directed system of actual individual heroism. That's what it calls you to. Read the story of Musa, read the story of Ibrahim, read the story of Salih, read the story of Hud. This is what it is. Read the story of Muhammad over and over and over again. It's not about joining this big religion and everyone shouting Allahu Akbar and growing a long beard and becoming exactly like everybody else. It's different to that. It's the individual man walking along with God. That's how it works. And this whole society, I'm going to get into this in a later video, it's a conspiracy against that. It's to get you to second guess that in yourself. And whether we like it or we don't like it, it's men who are called to this form of heroism. Men only. Look in the Quran, it's only men. Men are the only messengers, they're the only prophets. I didn't write that book, so if you don't like it, take it up with God, right? But that's the fact. And the reason why I'm going through this is because men are in the crosshairs of this war, and they're demoralized. Now, I'm not here to give you a pep talk. If it requires my pep talks to keep you, floating there, it's not going to work. What I'm trying to say is that when you embrace this, when you embrace your own heroism, when you embrace your own purpose, and it stops affecting you, and you become, your DNA changes. I think that's what I'm trying to say. You stop being a mass man and you start being what you're meant to be. And what I'm trying to say is that this is your salat. This is actually what you're called to. So rather than fight all of this stuff, this is just the topology of the background, the sort of, what's it in English? The background of your existence. What you're called to is to embrace the inner mission. And once you got that firmly fixed and stop looking to other people to define it for you, and I would argue looking to the Quran for the strength that it gives you, the guidance that it will give you, then you change and you stop reacting and you stop caring about all of this stuff. I'm not saying it's not important, just saying that you can't fight it on those terms. You cannot beat your enemy using the weapons your enemy gave you. Okay, you're not going to be able to Twitter your way out of this. It's not going to work. It's something else. Becoming inner directed, embracing that mission, and it's not going to be a popular thing. And it doesn't even require an awful lot of men, I don't believe. I'd be very surprised. But that's how it works. But you can't look to, the world to give you confirmation for this. It doesn't work that way. I want to be a leader. Am I leading? No, it doesn't work that way. It works another way. And I'm going to get into a chap in another video who I think might be able to put some meat on the bones of some of this. So anyway, that's it. I don't know if that all makes sense. But yeah, that's all for now. If you're listening on YouTube, you can download my full translation of the Quran free using the button in the top right-hand corner, or buy the hard copy there at 10% less than on Amazon. I also encourage you to sign up for the Quranite Plus newsletter on the site to get occasional micro updates. You can download the audio from my YouTube videos to your mobile device using the links in the drop-down below. I recommend meetquranites.com to connect with other Quran-alone believers. Like if you like, comments if you have something constructive to say, and subscribe to get more each week. And use the link in the drop down below to donate if you would like to help me keep doing this. And remember, this life is short, eternity is long. If you want good trees, plant good seeds.